Hey, what we wanted to do is let's jump into the content that we had really focused here. We really wanted nice. We really wanted to go into some detail regarding Dynamics 365 portals, right? That was really our focus for today. And basically, what we're going to do, we've all been just crazy busy lately. I've had more demonstrations, I think, in the last week than I have in the past. And I know Adam and Marcus have been in the same camp. So this is really the meaning of Confab. We're just going to go over and just dive into it and just look at some of those features that are in portals, talk through some of the concepts, look at some of the documentation with it, and really just have an open discussion with you guys on it and how it can be used. Because in my mind, this is one of the important parts in any business, is that you've got a lot of internal information in an ERP system that you're maintaining, but at the same point, you want to expose that externally. And it's not just ERP, it's also CRM, it's your field service, it's all these different business processes that you have. And the nice thing about portals is it really allows for you to create custom portals to connect then to any type of person or entity or organization that you want to drive that. You can have customer-facing portals, vendor-facing portals, and you can design these within the Power Apps environment, which I thought was a really cool concept because it's a very easy-to-use environment. And we're pre-sales, but we're not trying to sell you on anything here, obviously. What we're trying to do is give you the information that you can use from a platform perspective to then, connect to your customers. Because even now, more than ever, it's so much more important to connect, right? Because we're not out and about, we're not chatting with everyone all the time. We need to be able to have access then to this information, and we want to kind of cultivate that. So that being said, Adam, I don't know if you wanted to jump in a little bit on some of the topics that you were thinking of covering that we could dive into and have some fun with.
Yeah, definitely. Let me take the screen here from you. Let's see here.
I'm going to switch over to, we've got, guys, we're going to still have some drop frames as we go through this. So, Adam was big. Power App portals.
So you can see, yeah?
Yeah, I can see.
Perfect. Okay. So, yeah, we're a little behind, and there's so much. I do have to say, guys, there is a ton of content to share, and a lot of rabbit holes we can go down. So if I'm going any which way and we're getting a little sidetracked, or let's be real, I'm geeking out a little bit too hard on particulars, feel free to get the lasso out and rope me back in, because it goes deep. So, today I'm going to try to keep things, and I think we're collectively going to try to keep things pretty high level. We have to, we've got a mix of audience, right? So we've got people who are really just getting curious about Power Apps portals or portal capabilities, people who may have been thinking about it for quite some time and not familiar with the Microsoft product or the CDS Power Apps D365 product. So, we've got to kind of cover a range, and with that, we're going to cover some pretty introductory source material, as well as slightly more advanced, when we start thinking about apps in apps, or embedding virtual agents, or how to go about doing some of these things. You can get slightly more technical, but we're living in the Power Platform world, so low code, no code, fewer clicks, more power, and we have a lot that we can do just with a few clicks and a couple of copy pastes. So we're going to walk through a ton today, but these are the main buckets of information that I think we'll keep things close to, or at least categorized under. So I do want to give a quick overview, just some history and where we've been, where we're going, and the exciting time that we're living in right now, given the technology that we're afforded in the stack. And then I'm just going to start from the Maker portal. I'm just going to go in and give you the rundown of where to go, some of the key concepts in terms of what we call like naked portals versus the customer service or partner portals or anything like that. So we'll talk through a couple of design concepts there, design framework concepts, and then get into some of the actual portal configuration and key concepts there. So with the advent of the new portal configuration tool, we have a lot of ease when it comes to getting customizations on web pages and introducing new pages and going in. But there is also this other side to it. So not everything is baked into this really slick tool that's on the front end right through your Maker portal. We do have to kind of jump between some stones to get what we need and really get to the fine tuning of customization. But we'll talk through all the configuration stuff. And then, as we're going through, I don't want to dedicate time to this. I would say, especially Scott and Marcus, chime in if we're if you're thinking about, or if you're you've been speaking with prospects or customers that have been talking about portals or thinking about portals in specific industries or specific value adds here or there. I would say let's maybe toward the latter part of the time we have allotted here, talk about like particular use cases, either from our existing customers or people that we've spoken with. And there are licensing considerations. I think for today's sake, because we had the later start, we'll just link that. I think we'll include some license resources. I don't want to spend my time going through the headache that is Microsoft licensing right now.
I agree.
So
it's pretty complicated.
And it's a lot, right? Yeah. So you can use it. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, though, right? I mean, it's not very bad either, though. I mean, they've got like for the number of transactions, they've got like a transaction count licensing that's with it, right? So I mean, it's not. I don't want to scare people and be like, oh, it's super expensive. It's not that bad.
No, it's not. Maybe we just get it out of the way right now, or at least at this stage. Portal licensing used to be a flat rate per org, so per environment. So I think it was like $500 a pop for portals, and that did actually span production and lower environments, which was kind of a pain point, especially in development life cycles, right? So understanding how to build and configure, get it all baked in, you need more than one portal to do that. So there were some thorns in a lot of sides. Right now they've moved. You can have as many portals as you want, but it all comes down to the hits, the impressions. So actual visits to that portal. So it can be a cost saver for some. It can be a cost generator for others, but it all comes down to how you have it set up, your expected daily traffic, and a few other factors. So we'll be sure to include some resources and kick that out, but I don't think we're not going to belabor it here today and take a look at the whole matrix. That's just not going to be nearly as cool as the other stuff we're going to take a look at. So, can you see the maker portal? Can you see it? Yep. Am I in it? Yep. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Definitely. So I just logged in, and I have this is a test environment. So I'm right in the maker portal here. Now, a couple of things that I do want to touch on before we start spinning up or start taking a look at these different portal types. Just conceptually breaking down a few things. So a portal, I feel like people know what a portal is. We don't have to dive into the Webster's dictionary version or breakdown of what a portal is. You're accessing data from one side, you're accessing data from another. It's a collaboration space. So it's pretty straightforward conceptually. However, it's historically been pretty difficult to get a slick, value-adding, functional portal in place for Dynamics CRM and Dynamics 365 customers until, and this is the history lesson. So imagine I have a book and I have, the logos are floating around and there's a whole animated thing that's, going down here. Confab budget. But no, we started back in the day with, proprietary, like, what was it, MVC portals and some proprietary .NET, and you're building this and you're hosting this and you're managing this. And then came along ADX Studio. So they actually had this solution to bring in to make everything talk and stand something up in a pretty straightforward fashion. There was a lot more involvement than what I just said, but they were the first to really have this polish and something that was natively managed and configured. You had external customizations and whatnot as well, but they really brought this whole new world. So over time in the Dynamics 365 paradigm shift, that was then adopted under that brand as D365 portals. So you still had like an app and a space to configure all of these entities and run portal configuration. And we'll take a look at what that looks like in D365 today. But the super exciting thing, and what we're going to take a look at today, is Power Apps portals, which you don't need a first-party app. And by first-party app, I mean sales, field service, marketing, customer service, project operations, anything like that. You don't need a first-party app to, or historically you have needed that to get a customer service or a marketing oriented portal in place. Now we have that abstracted up, and we have Power Apps portals where you don't need one of the first party apps to stand something up and start taking a look at it and working with collaboratively your CDS data, which is really exciting because there's this, I mentioned earlier, this concept of, like a naked CRM or a naked portal where you don't have to be locked into a fully functional sales pipeline management solution or an application to get a portal or to get a solution. Now we live in the world where we can whip up Canvas apps, we can whip up model-driven apps, and now the newest app version, portal apps, we can create these apps living on a clean CDS database that does not have entities and schema from sales or marketing or customer service. Rather, it starts with the common data model that's defined there, and then you build on top of that. So we can go in and define our entire world when it comes to that schema, and then the portal that we're using to collaborate with our rep networks or to collaborate with our maybe even our employees. As a resource hub. So a lot to go through today, and I just wanted to set the stage on how we got to where we are. It's important to understand, this came from an ISV, this came from ADX. It was then adopted and rolled into D365, but it really was geared toward those first party applications, those fully baked apps. Now we can, and we'll take a look at, do this as a framework, do this as an abstracted level up type of thing. So I'm in the Maker portal right now. And just even on the home screen, you can start whipping up apps from blank. So I can go and create a portal from blank, and that really is that naked portal. So if I go and click into create portal from blank, I've already reached my max, so I'm gonna get ignore the it's already
messages.
It's already
it's demo. Come on.
But you'd put in your portal name here, and you can define the web address. So it will go and run a check. So confab test 0. If I did that, it should bark because I already have that domain name registered. So it will validate all of those that are available and give you that back. But you're going to set your domain. We'll just say confab test 2, and then you'll designate your language. I just have English here. By clicking on create, you agree to the terms and conditions. Everybody reads those. I know you all do. We're very diligent with that.
Every single time, Adam. I mean, every single word. No, never.
Go through that, and then it would start provisioning. You would start provisioning your portal. So. In fact, what I can do even here is click on. You're gonna. One thing I've noticed when you're working with multiple portal apps is that you're going to have this. It's going to come up all the time. In fact, when you click into the more options on an app by app basis, if you're going into your portal apps, it's going to give you this. If you are living in a trial every single time, and it's very annoying. I recall the days of all of the. Get the app for Outlook and all of the in-system notifications and whatnot. But this is that confab test. I'm just going to. No, we don't need to go through provisioning. It takes a little while anyway. So once you do that, it will take up to. I mean, the ones that I was able to jump into pretty quickly took 10 minutes. 15 minutes to get provisioned. They say it can take up to a couple of hours. So just be mindful of that.
I had when I created mine, sorry to interrupt, when I created mine, it took about an hour before it finally came back online so I could actually go through and start playing around with it basically. So it's really cool. Like we've shown in some of the other videos how to go through this creation of a trial environment, like a common data service trial environment. The cool thing about that is you can use that environment as well with this, can't you? Because it's looking at the environments up at the top here. So if you create a D365 environment, you would then have access to it.
You got it. Yep. So, being mindful of which environment, that is another great point, is be mindful of which environment you're in. If I snap over to my default, which I'm never in, but you're going to see this pared down quite a bit more. So I have a different sales demo portal here, and I wonder if I can even, if I can spin one now. It's per environment. So just be mindful of the environment that you're in. But yes, you can plug this into the trials that you have and get going and test some things out, which is great. So one thing I did want to hit on here is that we can start with a blank portal, and to give you a flavor of what that looks like, just to compare and contrast, I will we'll jump into this. But I talked earlier about this idea of a naked portal, or something that you're using as a framework to build a custom portal, build a custom, on top of a custom schema, maybe just something that's purely custom CDS build versus sales or customer service or something. The same applies for portals, and when you're on the home screen here, or even when you go to your apps, you don't have that like right in front of you, that billboard saying, hey, you can actually start with one of the say customer service or the customer self-service portals that has a lot of the really cool liquid features and some of the cool bootstrap formatting and features that are in there, some of the entity forms, and we'll talk through some of these key points and what these things mean in a second. But with the clean portal, one caveat here is that you're not going to get all that fun stuff. You're going to get some basic pieces. If I go, it's up right now. That's the customer self-service. I need the confab test. Anyway, the customer self-service and some of the other types of portals that do require the other first-party apps in D365, they are still here. So if you go to all templates and scroll down, you can see community portal, customer self-service, partner, employee self-service. So they are still available. Do know that. So you can still access the more robust, right off the shelf types of portals that do come with knowledge-based search capabilities and some of those cool features on the front end, on within the page templates and within some of the different sitemap features and whatnot. So be mindful.
I like those for training. I
Yes.
spun up, I think, each of those and just sort of dug through how they were set up, constructed.
Yep, definitely. So when you do create one of these portals, I think I had, let's see, customer self-service. That's confab test 1. That's 0. I must have had the. You know what I'm gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
Is okay. Oh man, my whole day just changed. Everything just flipped over. So yeah, I have 3 portals and 2 environments, something to keep track of. Just make sure that you're hitting the right database, you're in the right environment as you're going through this. But let's jump in and actually take a look at. I'm going to switch my environment back to not my default. But let's take a look at just the overview of a portal to start, and then we'll jump into some of the configuration. So you can see I have three different portals up right now. So let's take a look at this. This is just a custom portal that has a few features baked into it that Microsoft serves up to you. But this is a custom portal. We've got our header, we've got our sitemap up top. So we have some searching. They do have full index search capabilities here with relevant search. Down below, there's that bot again. It's going to be everywhere because I was so frustrated and just putting it like, hey, will this work? Will this work? Will this work here? So I'm really pumped about that. Probably spent a lot of unnecessary hours doing things that were clearly in the background already working. That's nice. I'm going to click into Contact Us here just to go to another page. So a couple of conceptual things to consider as we move forward. You can see that we've got attributes here: first name, last name. This is a simple Contact Us page. So in this custom portal template that Microsoft serves up when you provision one of these portals as kind of a starting block, you are going to have some verbose breakdowns and guidance, which is really cool. I thought that was really awesome that they have this served up so you can, to Marcus's point a minute ago, understand where some of this, like how this interplays with other components, what it means, and how it ties to the data within your system. So right here, you can see that this is a simple sample Contact Us page, and this, once filled in and submitted, is going to generate a lead in the respective database that this is pointing to. So we have our attributes here. This is mapping to the lead entity. So first name, last name, email, phone number, and I'll just go through, and why not just follow along at Stoneridge stoneridgesoftware.com, and you move forward. So this is considered a web page on the portal side within D365 or within Power Apps portals. You have to define what's called an entity form. So we've got, just like in normal configuration in a model-driven app or in D365, you've got an entity form. The entity name in the configuration is called entity form, on all of that in quotes. So you have to serve up entity forms to display data and work with data and make that handshake happen. But what's nice is that it's configuration based within the system. So when you're in a model driven app and you build a form, it will, and then you create an entity form within portal configuration. We'll take a look at what that looks like in a minute. That's how you make the magic happen. So we do need to serve up to the portal these entity forms, but the very nice thing is that this is the same data, across the board. So this is the same data that once submitted, somebody internally, say an individual from a marketing team or sales ops would be able to, we would ingest this and they'd be able to see the same data and work with the same data. So this is an entity form that I'm working off of here. You can see that we can inject polls. There are things like forums and feedback. So we've got a ton of capability, but this is the look and feel. You can customize this stuff to the teeth. You can brand it. You can make the buttons look different. You can slide things around. You can use this as a framework. In fact, I work with a couple of customers who have really taken a lot of liberties and done quite a bit in terms of customer experience to make it look and feel a very specific way that breaks away from what Microsoft serves up right out of the box. So, this is what you're going to get out of the box and served up. But do keep in mind that all of this can be tailored with CSS, HTML, classic web dev concepts there.
So when I was heading in, starting to build my first portal here, or modifying the one I had, what you just said about entity forms though was the missing link that I had. So I struggled with this until I basically uncovered that was the key I was missing. That then drove how these forms worked, and it was really easy to create new pages, customize the ones that were there, do all the stuff you just talked about. That was the easy part once you found that form.
Yep. So think about it as almost like an intersect, right? So like we've got our form, like in any model driven app that we would create with a bunch of these fields on it, like right in the system internally. We've got our web page that we're trying to get the same attributes on that we're looking at right here, this contact us. So we've got this web page. The middle part of that, the handshake, that's that entity form. That allows that system form, that entity form in your model-driven app to be displayed on the web page. So there is a middle piece, a middle component, and the same goes for views, and those are called entity lists. So when you have a list of records, that's the same thing. You have a view in the system. You've got a web page where you want to display that view. In the middle, you need an entity list. Same for forms.
Yep. Once I discovered that unlocked all of this.
Yep, for sure. So, I can submit this. We have some segmentation here, nothing too crazy. In the header, you can have discrete, we've got discrete areas of the system, or you can group them in drop downs like this. So, you can have these different breakouts that link to various things in the system. Now, this is just a sample. I'm actually going to kill this because we're going to take a look at cooler stuff, but make sure I'm in my right environment. That's good. So I'm going to go down and start editing one of the portals that I was working on this last week. So this says Confab customer self-service. If you click on the ellipses here, there's that notification. If I click
the wonderful notifications, right?
It's now becoming a shtick. This is fantastic. If you click into the ellipses here, you click right into it. You're gonna crack open a new tab and go to your portal. But I'm gonna go to edit right here, and this is gonna snap us over. It doesn't give you a new tab. I actually kind of wish it did, but it'll take a few seconds to think as it syncs the configuration and gets a few things rendered. Because you do actually have, you'll see now. This is the portal configuration tool, the new way or the new version of making some quick edits and arrangements and injecting some components. It's really cool. The nice thing is that you've got this preview render right away. See, that message follows you right into it. Okay, so you've got your I better convert. I've only got 29 days left. You've got the page, so it's going to start on your homepage. Now this is a rep portal that I started configuring yesterday. So it was what is it here? So I've got this rep portal. You'll see that I customized the sitemap. I've got a lot of cool features in here. There's a knowledge base search, relevance search, going down. We've got different sections, and a lot of this was served up. I'm not going to try to keep that behind a veil. A lot of this stuff, in terms of the formatting and the page templates, is served up. I didn't, customize a ton of this kind of stuff, but
Hey, Adam.
it does look a lot different. Yeah.
Hey, quick question for you. So in chat right now, Mr. Stallman was asking, is it possible to pre-populate the form with information from CRM? An example, ask the customer to update the information we already have. Is that actually possible then with these portals?
Oh, 100%. And that's the beauty of it. When we talk about collaboration, I'll skip ahead just a little bit so we can actually take a look at that. I'll go to support requests. So this is my home screen.
Mr. Stallman, you weren't setting up that at all. Did you already know this, Mr. Stallman? I could see Dave knowing this already.
Yeah. I have to sign in here. 1 second. But yeah, I guess if it was a slow pitch, Dave, thank you. When I talk about collaboration, I'm an admin in this portal here, so forgive as I hover over different elements. This is kind of the old school front end editor. But the nice thing, if I go, so right now I'm creating a case. We're skipping ahead a little bit, but to this point specifically, if I go and create a case, I should have my name populated right in that customer field. So that comes in automatically. What we can do is inject these things called liquid tags. So liquid being a pretty truncated reference framework. So you can use these, instead of having multiple lines of code, and if you're going through any custom.NET development or JavaScript, pulling data or using some of the related data that you need to grab and use on these different records. Instead, you can use Liquid to be able to grab the data, corral the data, set fields by default. If you're thinking about things like price lists or parent customers, things like that. Right now, it just pulled my name in automatically, but that's the beauty of a portal, is this is a collaborative thing. So when you kick up new records or when you're accessing existing records, you're working in the same data, whether you're in D365 or a custom model driven app or on the front end on the portal side. So
and that's huge, right? I mean, so the portal information, the Power App. So we played around with Power Apps before. We made some apps where you can log in into a Power App and do your customer information or do your updates. But if you do that update, it updates then the portal information, it updates CRM, it updates ERP, it updates field service, it updates PSA. I mean, it's just like you think about the depth of this. No longer do you have to create processes that synchronize between these different environments. If you're using CDS truly the way it was intended, your source data repository is really in that common data service, which gives you this access.
Yep. I really haven't even gotten to that next step, which is dual write with portal use. So that opens up insane doors. I think I would be remiss, and this is a pretty casual meeting. Dual write, it's ultra exciting. There are a few considerations at this point right now, but man, even the app you showed me the other week, Scott, was awesome. So if you take that to the next level, if you take that to portal collaboration and portal solutions, that's really powerful stuff. End-to-end centralized data, realized in real time across any fence that you have in your stack. That's crazy. So back to the configuration. So we've got our preview pane in the middle here. So you can see kind of like when I just showed you the that old school or the classic front end editor, because I was logged in as an admin. As you hover over some of these elements, you're going to get the type tag. So you're going to actually see what kind of component it is if I hover over text or if I hover over specific sections. We've got a link up top, we've got our header, and then down below we've got our footer. So here's a content snippet, different elements. You'll get that that context. So this follows the same maker protocol, or the same format as building a business process flow, an app. Really, anything in Microsoft Biz Apps these days is getting this. You've got your canvas, or your creation space as the focal point. On the right hand side, you've got your settings, your configurability options, and then on the left, you've got your major components. So on the left, just to break down the different areas of this configuration space, we've got our pages. So when I crack that open, we're going to get a tree view. Should be pretty familiar for those that have been living in Canvas apps. We have our main home. So this is going to give you that tree breakdown of all the pages that you have. If I go into any of these ellipses or right click on any of these pages here, we can hide in the default menu. So yes, we can keep pages hidden if we want specific redirects. We don't want them exposed in the sitemap. We don't want people accessing them regularly, for things like web forms, landing pages, other pieces that we just don't really want statically on our website. This is a great way we can hide them and not have them accessible, and still redirect people or link people to those pages as they're going through various web pages in our site. So we can add child pages to this. We can set the sort order, or we can just strip them out. But if I click on any of these pages, that's where we're going to snap to that page right in the middle here to start editing. So this is really the sitemap and the pages breakdown in tree form. Down below that, we've got our components. So if I go to, right now I'm on a forums page. Let's say I'll go to the contact us page, kind of like we saw a minute ago with that lead submission web page that we were living on. So first name, last name, pretty general contact information. But if I go and if I click on, say, this text box here, or a different section, we can go to our components, and this is where we can start injecting layout options, these column blocks or various portal components. To get things like Power Virtual Agents or Canvas apps. We're going to take a look at that in a minute. But to get those, we would be working with iframes. So using the URL that's blocked in those iframe HTML tags.
Hold on. Did you say iframe that you use for Power Apps that you put into here as well?
That is correct.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. So a public-facing, because we've talked about this a couple of different times, a public-facing Power App, the problem with that has always been generally you have to log in, right, to get access to that Power App, to install it. And it's much more conducive, I think, to a business operation than it is customer-facing. But the Power Apps are so powerful, right, because you can quickly create custom functionality or process flows and business logic that's related to it. So to do that, though, in Portal, you can do that. You basically create the portal, but then you use an iframe to reference it, and it will then log in and do all that for you. Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
There are asterisks. Especially with virtual agents. If you like, there are some authentication caveats, and there are some limitations, and there are some stringent rules that you will need to follow in certain scenarios. So it's not plunk it in, you're good to go. There are some things that you have to tailor to. We're not going to get into the thick of that today, but just know that with some configuration, with some tailoring, you can, and we'll take a look at it, you can get these things live. So where it makes sense from a business requirement perspective to maybe just put a blank page up, get that Canvas app up and going, we have those capabilities. So it is exciting. I keep, I think, underplaying a lot of this stuff because it's, we live in details every day, and it's setting up demos, and it's building environments, and it's build, go, tell the story. Where if you actually take a step back a little bit and look at that comment today, we can set up a Power Apps portal that's on a custom CDS database with internally custom model-driven apps without first-party applications, and put a Canvas app right on that portal for outside external resources to use with maybe a few hours of configuration. That is insane. So
yeah, it used to be you'd have to buy an ISV, do an implementation, do an analysis, do all these different steps to implement the environment, to replicate the data. I mean, like you said, it is absolutely insane. And like you said, Adam, we're all in the details with this, right? I've been in ERP now for almost 20 years going through this, and it's so nice to be able to finally do these types of changes.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think the overall, you can see I just injected an iframe in the default that it shoots to is Bing.com. So it just, you can see and you can scale this and you can size it up. This is me throwing an iframe into the mix. So you'd set your link, set the sizing. And again, this is basic stuff, but I think that what we just highlighted is the main message for today. What used to take multiple resources, multiple weeks or months, a lot of overhead, a lot of planning, and they're not to take away from complex projects, because complex projects with complex business requirements will still take people with front-end web development shops. It still will take a lot of planning and resourcing, and more of the tactical pieces. But what used to take so much time and so much effort has now been scaled down to, like I said, mere hours to get something off the ground. And that really is the message of Power Apps Portals, is you can get off the ground and expose your data and have people accessing the same data, not staged, the same data in a few clicks. And that is crazy. Like, the value add to that is crazy. So that I think right there is, package that up, tie a little bow on it. That's how we frame the conversation today. Is there's so many capabilities that I guess I do lose sight of day to day, week to week, that are just insane value adds for especially leaner teams that are looking to get high value with very low effort, or very low in terms of overhead and resources.
Yeah, and just to highlight one more too, sorry, Marcus. I mean, it's just from the perspective of being able to quickly do that. I mean, even though you can, if you're looking at from a management perspective with it, obviously you still want some of that structure in place, right? So meaning, like, when you're doing development with something, like you're creating a portal, usually you do mock-ups ahead of time, right? To talk about the concepts with it, because even though it's rapid to change it, you could even use this as the mock-up. Like, you could, as a team, be in the portal and then be doing the mock-ups there. That's what we do with a lot of when we implement, we have the screens up and we're going through and making changes with it. The reason I just want to stress that is because it's not that all of a sudden it's so easy that you just go ahead and create it and then deploy it and everything's all hunky-dory, right? You've got to think about, how do you maintain it, how do you create it, how do you add to it. So you still, all those development-centric processes that you do with code, for example, when you're creating custom code, take those and then map that same mentality, especially for an enterprise, to these tools. So that way you do have change management involved, and you do have bugs that occur, and you do have requests that come through. So just as an FYI, we see how powerful it is, and it is very capable, but at the same point, that management perspective, you're definitely going to want to consider.
Well, 100%. So I really, the conversation today isn't even truly hitting on like ALM and deployment, right? So in terms of actually, jumping into source control and going from lower environments to higher environments, we're not really going to hit on that today, and that's huge. So yes, that's a powerful message. The ease of entry to get a portal going, having people collaborate in real time with the same data is insane. However, that should be underscored for anybody that's going to be managing this and living in this and configuring and owning, that this is not a silver bullet. And that's any business. This isn't unique to Power Apps Portals or D365 or anything in the Microsoft BizApp space. Any tool, there will be a people process. There will be ownership. There will be directives and hoops that you have to jump through for however your organization has it set up for that application development lifecycle. There will be non-business app specific considerations for all of that. So that is a really important point to make.
Yep, absolutely.
So to fly through the rest of this config, and then we'll take a look at portals. I probably want to jump into Power Platform integrations and things next, but section layouts, we've got portal components, text, images. We just took a look at the iframes, and then here's the actual entity forms and lists and breadcrumbs. So we are limited a little bit. It does serve up quite a bit right out of the gates, but this is what we have to work with in the front end. And with the point and click configuration in the new portal editor, it's going to take you so far, and it is high value, low overhead, but you are locked into specific ways to configure and arrange and whatnot. But these are the primary components you're going to get in the editor. Further down, We've got different themes. So right now I have loaded up just the off-the-shelf themes that come with this portal, and then at the bottom, these are the page templates. So as you kick up new web pages, as you're we looked at that web page tree. As you're introducing new web pages, you actually can. If I go and add a new page, you can click on new page in the top left. You can start from blank. You can actually kick up a landing page as well. You can go to fixed layouts. So if I hover over fixed layouts, this is where we have those entity forms that I talked about. So we can start with some of the entity forms that are included in those solutions. But I'm going to go and start building a blank web page just to show you what I mean by page templates. So right now it's creating a new page for me. In fact, if I go to my tree, oops. If I go to the web pages that we have, you can see that the new page is at the very bottom right there. So this really is blank. All this stuff, this get help and some of the links, this is all the footer. You can even see I'm hovering over it and you see footer right up at the top left of that main section. So there's nothing here. We have a single column and that's it. But if I click on that section, or if I go to the page itself, on the right-hand side, you see I'm working on the component web page. We give it a name, you give it a partial URL. So whatever you want, in the URL at the bar up top here, whatever you want that, like /rep portal or whatever you want that to be, this is where you can designate that. But I'll name this page Confab awesome page.
Because Confab is awesome.
Because Confab is awesome. You'll see that I clicked in some empty space here. You can hit enter. It does save, as changes are being made, but there is a slight lag in some of that. So I tend to just be paranoid and click around to make sure that loads up or saves up. But here's the partial URL, Confab awesome sauce. Ooh, that dates me, doesn't it? But
that totally does.
Now as we navigate to this page, if it's included in the sitemap or we're redirected to it from other pages, we would see that it would be whatever that domain URL is /confab-awesome sauce. And down below that, here's where we have our formatting options. So underneath the template, this is where we have a number of those page templates. So we can go blank page. So when I am throwing Power Apps in or maybe embedded Power BI dashboards or anything like that, I actually probably just go blank page or full page without child links. So it gives you a little bit more real estate. There aren't formatting hurdles that you have to work around or work with or anything like that. I usually just start with a blank slate, but you can select a number of different templates that are in here to start from. So, it's as easy as this to get a new web page going. You then have to, introduce your components, whatever you want to start building with, work with some of the templates. If you're going to be going with anything other than a blank page flavor. So that's the gist of the feel of the content editor, the portal editor. One thing to note here is since I'm down kind of focused on the footer, I'll click into the footer. So you can see that I'm now in the footer and editing that, no properties to show. But at the very bottom where it says checkmark saved, that's your kind of your status. Yeah, you're good, you're saved. But right next to that is the little whack. So we have our source code editor. I can write on the fly, and with the preview up top, it's so cool. If you break open this code editor, you can make edits and start playing with the HTML or any of the components that you've injected to this point right within the source. So for any of those that might be a little bit more comfortable with raw HTML or CSS, and you want to see some of these things on the fly, Scott, you mentioned mocking up earlier. You can do this in real time right in the editor and see those results, which is pretty cool.
But that opens us up to features that aren't just available with the forms editor too, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, and we can see if I mentioned liquid tags earlier. So this is a little bit of right here. This is that it's that shorthand. So using liquid, to call content snippets or to load different components that you have stored in your configuration up to that web page versus hard coding them right in. So you can inject liquid tags. You can start working with the HTML, CSS right in the source, which is pretty sweet. You can, and once you have things in a good place, you can go ahead and sync that configuration, and then you can browse too. So if I click browse website, we're going to get a new tab, and that's the site as it is, as it's saved and configured.
So a couple questions then real quick here. So with sites, obviously there's like Node.js, there's a lot of different libraries that are used for design as well with this. Do you know if this allows for those custom type libraries to be embedded in here as well?
Yep.
To be able to then use some of those tools, because obviously this accesses the data. It's got a what you see is what you get kind of environment to make modifications to it, but maybe you've got some advanced portal stuff that you created for pages that you'd like to kind of import into Portal. Could you theoretically do that?
Yeah, definitely. So better time now than any to talk about the portal management app that's in that you're afforded with. So it's within D365. So I shot over to the next tab right here, and under, if you're hitting your Dynamics home, it'll be there. But if you hit the drop down here, it'll be accessible as well. There's this portal management. So if I click into portal, I was already in it, but just to give you the home screen, you're going to have all of your key configuration components. So all of this, and we talked about application lifecycle management a few minutes ago. Most of the portal is built on config data. There's a lot of custom code that goes into a lot of portals, but in terms of security breakdown and those content snippets I talked about, and what Scott has alluded to, the custom libraries and media and everything that you have that you would load into a render of a web page, that's all contained in a much more robust and much more complex app that's right in D365. So we're moving kind of a little away from Power Apps portals proper to more of the nitty gritty. But you can see that we've got our main headers of our site components, content. So like that media and some of the redirects and a few of the pieces that we talked about earlier. And then here's a whole security chunk. So we can build these essentially security roles for portal users, and then ascribe entity permissions on an entity by entity basis and build those out. And then we've got knowledge article forum ad and general admin section. So you can see how robust this solution is once you start working with more of the backend and configuration of Dynamics portals. And then down below, you do have a community section as well. So this is that forum management that we talked a little bit about. So in the in the page templates, or in we've got bindings, we've got general site settings for site behavior, and then the content snippets that I talked about. You can use a lot of these, and web files in particular. You can use a lot of these to can and store either libraries, media, anything that actually is going to load up and render on your web pages. And there is a rhyme and a reason to a lot of it, and it does take a little bit in terms of getting used to how it all plays together and what's called when and how. But once you get you get that knack, it's pretty straightforward to jump in and start configuring some of these things.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because the portals, it's representing your brand, right? So having that so that you can control that. Obviously, CSS is a very base capability, and HTML is a very base capability. But then being able to have those custom JavaScript-based interactions, graphics, different effects that you do on websites now. You really want that to flow correctly. And to me, it can be as basic as you want, so you can rapidly go ahead and deploy a portal, access common data service to get to that data, but then you can expand upon it even more. You can go deeper with it. And that's kind of, I think that's a challenge, I think, on the Power Platform in some ways that I think that they're going to have to tackle. More specifically, like with Power Apps, I know it's a citizen developer, right? But when you get to the edge of what a Power App can do, how do you want to tackle that? Do you want to be able to write code? And you can now use Flow, or use Azure Service Bus, or some of those other technologies to create that conditional logic, but that that allows us to expand that, right, to get to that, whereas portals need that same capability too. So that's really cool to see.
Yep. And one thing to note is that there is some I don't want to say a headache, but I mentioned it does take a little while to get used to where this stuff should live. So when I want, when I want a specific iframe loaded in a specific way, I don't want to inject it right into a page. The beauty of having this entity-based configuration is that it can be so dynamic. So instead of going page by page by page by page and hitting the source every single time you need something configured or updated, you can use those liquid tags, those truncated liquid tags, to call dynamic pieces of your website. So those content snippets and those web files, those pieces of media or anything else that you have, or those blocks of code dynamically in web page renders, which is really powerful. So this is boring, and I know that we're on a time crunch, so I'm boring myself, but I do want to hit on security. So if you saw, there are these things called web roles. Think of web roles as, if you're familiar with D365 or CDS security, or model-driven app security, it's like a security role, right? So we've got a web role. I've got a number, just 3 main ones between my 2 portals right here. So if I go into authenticated users, the top down, it looks and feels like just like a security role. So we've got our name. Hey, which site does it pertain to? A couple of other options. We can, there are some admin pieces here. We can set access levels or restrictions. But if I go into my related here, this is where I can see my entity permissions. The whole confab on entity permissions, but you can see that we've got, if I sort by entity name here, we've got our entity name, and this should look pretty familiar: read, write, create, delete, append, and append to. So instead of having this big matrix on a static page where you fill in the bubbles and you're actually setting the scope, user, user, BU, parent, child, and full, we set those on a line-by-line basis. So we've got our parent web role, and then we've got a number of child entity permissions under that, and on a line-by-line basis, so transactionally across the entities that we want to control, expose, etc., for these portal users, this is where we set those here. So we can even set specific relationships if we want cascading visibility or restrictions. So there's a lot of malleability with these entity permissions that play into how portal users can access and work with the data.
That's awesome.
And the other note on security is that portal, I think everybody that I work with is using Azure B2C authentication.
Cool.
So let's take a look at the some of the features in when it comes to working with other Power Platform tools. So right here, I do have some components that were served up to me, and forgive me, I am working on in an admin mode. So as I hover over some of these pieces, we do have the editability here, and in fact, this is how I prefer to customize the sitemap. So if I go to primary navigation, I can click edit, and it's really easy to drag and drop and add new pages. So if I wanted to nest maybe the knowledge base under forums or under home or anything else, I can start moving this around. Maybe I put my just the out of the box, off the shelf Microsoft stuff up underneath a new grouping. So if I wanted to create a new grouping, I'd hit plus. We'll say Microsoft stuff. And I'm not going to designate a page or anything else. This is really just an umbrella. I'm not going to go through these other settings here, but just showing you how easy it is to save that. I just added a new sitemap area with no page attributed to it, with no pages within it. But if I go and nest that underneath the Microsoft stuff, it's easy enough to do. It's a little finicky here and there, but it's pretty slick. So if I save this right now, it'll save for a second. Sometimes you might have to clear the portal cache. There are resources out there in terms of how to do that, but this did actually snap to right away. So in real time, I was able to realize those sitemap edits. If I click Microsoft stuff, you can see that that's the stuff that I grouped under there. If I click Microsoft stuff directly, there's nothing there. This is really just the sitemap grouping that I injected. Under rep resources, this is some of the stuff that I worked with. So on reporting, if I choose that, so the use case here being, if I'm a rep and we've got a lot of complex data, maybe we have data living in other proprietary databases, or maybe legacy systems that we need to orchestrate. So we don't have everything we need in our CDS environment. We might look at Power BI. Maybe we just want Power BI because it's got a lot more capability in terms of slicing and dicing and analytics versus something like out-of-the-box charts, which you can also use. But here I've introduced a Power BI dashboard that has full functionality. On the bottom, we've got a number of different tabs, and this is just a sample. This is sample stuff that you can find in Power BI. But you use the Azure Active Directory security groups to get this going and to authenticate with the API. So we've got our charts, got market share and year to date and sentiment, and I can go in here, and if I go to that first page on that first report, I can click into this customer's central breakdown, and that will slice and dice automatically for me and show me the territory that it's operating in. I can maybe go into highlight mode for the geo stuff. We have our filters on the right hand side. So this is pulling. This is using the Power BI API. We have full Power BI capability here, which is awesome. This is a newer feature. I do have to say, for those that have been using portals for some time, this really got locked in. I can't remember exactly when, but the seamlessness of it really is pretty slick. So I do have to say, if you want to start with this, we can supply some resources, but I'm going to go back to our maker portal. One second. I'm just going to show you how to access the portal administration pane to get started with the Power BI integration. So if you go to your portal, you go to your apps. It was in the customer self-service, so I will. I'll go to settings.
It's telling you again. You only have 29 days. Just FYI.
All right. Hey, thanks. On the right-hand side, we've got our general info, and then site settings will actually take you to the entity. So we took a look at those configuration data. This is site settings that lives in there. But this administration option will shoot us to a new tab, and this is actually like domain management and some of the more core features for portal management and administration. So you've got your details. You can change the name of it. You can even flip to a different environment or database if you'd like. So we do have a number of options here. This is just the general portal information, but we can set up a SharePoint integration. If you go to set up Power BI integration, you'll have to enable the Power BI visualization, which is pretty straightforward. You might have to refresh or restart your portal, but then you have to go into manage your Power BI embedded service. So on the Power BI side, you have to make sure that you're in the new workspace. That's the one thing that kind of hung me up is in the verbiage in the Microsoft Docs and how they speak about making this integration work, they weren't very, very clear in the fact that they keep saying in the new workspace. I'm not a super, I haven't been living and breathing Power BI explicitly for years and years and years. So some of the documentation is a little scant, we'll put it that way, but that's nothing we're not too familiar with at this point. So you have to convert your workspace to the new version. So it does take a little bit of jockeying there, but once those are available, they'll be in the available workspaces. You kick those over into the selected workspaces, you click save. Once that is done, you would have to then go into Azure Active Directory. And if I go to, my battery's running low. We've got to wrap this up. You'll have to. There's some security steps and measures that you'll have to get in place. But the documentation.
Is that the app registration? I'm assuming maybe app registration.
You have to go into the tenant settings in Power BI and go down to the developer. Where is it here? Go down to the developer settings, allow service principals to use Power BI APIs and make sure that's enabled. And then before this step, you have to make sure you have a security group with the CRM portals ID in there and designate that here, apply it, and then you can use when you're in your workspaces. If I go to the Contoso one here, you can go to the whichever dashboard you want to use, and then just pull this URL and use it as an iframe.
Yeah, basically you're saying that this service, when it's accessing it, is able to have permission to access that workspace. So that makes sense. So it sounds like right now you can't do something that's like employee specific, because it's great for a start here, but just think about if you could actually do like an employee self-service portal and then have like employee performance that you could log into, right? And then click on your name and then see your Power BI. Maybe there's a way to pass filters to this, but this is a great start, because Power BI would just be really nice to visualize this.
Yeah, it's a lot sleeker, a lot slicker than some of the other out of the box stuff. So let's see here. One thing that I do want to display before my machine dies is if I go to onboarding here, some of the same app reg that Scott was talking about. This is that the onboarding app, from some of the templates that I just pieced in here. So it's getting the data right now. I threw in some stock messaging. Clearly I have an error. That's great. But this is that first day checklist. So setting admins, I'm just going to go to the get started pane. So it does know who I am. I'll go into get started, but this is a Canvas app. This is a Canvas app that I registered onto this page, and it's got full functionality. So if I wanted to set my company profile photo, select from gallery, can go into my bio photos. So I'm working in a Canvas app right on the portal. So there are some ins and outs and things to be mindful of, but it's pretty cool to be able to do this, and have low code, no code ways to be able to expose some of the cool things that your organization has been doing externally, or design some apps and pieces externally for your portal users. So this is really powerful to me. I'm working within, I'm getting some like managers, org chart
embed
barks here and there, but yeah, this is slick stuff. Like, to be able to, I myself am really taken aback by the Power BI. So if I go back to the reporting here, I really like this. This brings the external access to critical data and the ability to not just see it, but also to play with it, and also to run real-time analytics, to actually go and drill into any of these slicers, any of these elements that these Power BI dashboards in real time. So it only, you follow the Microsoft documentation. We can provide a rundown of the things that I follow, the things that I reference from time to time to get this stuff off the ground. But this is really, really powerful.
Yep.
If I go back to wrap resources here, let's see. I'll go to support requests. So we're talking about Power Platform integrations, and we haven't really even hit on the key, the heart of portal. Using a portal to access and work with data. So I'm on support requests right now. I just went to rep resources and down to support requests. So if I scroll down here, we've got a full search up top. This is an entity list. So we talked about, you've got views in the system, you've got a web page you want to display it on. In the middle, you need an entity list. Same for forms. But this is a rundown of all the cases. So we have them hyperlinked. I can click on these to get details, or on the right-hand side, we've got these little chevrons, so I can view details here. So it'll load up anything that's in that record. But let's see, this one I think is what I've been working on. It was really urgent, so I think the title is just "Hey" in all caps. But we have our we can set read only. So you can play with the metadata. You can work on an attribute by attribute level to keep that locked down, or leave it editable. But further down here, if I wanted to change the product, I can go in, and this is all data from the CDS database.
Exactly, that's the products. Yep.
So entitlement, I'm going to skip over, but subject, if I change that, maybe I was mischaracterized as information. I'm going to duck out of here and create a new one just to show you kind of the end-to-end process. So confab case, it pulled me in automatically as the customer. I'm actually going to change that to Stoneridge, and then myself is the contact. So this is where you will have to run some configuration, maybe use some liquid, maybe use some defaults here and there, and that is included in the backend configuration. No time for that today, but for the product, I'll say 3D printer, something like a 20-inch. We'll select that. I'm going to skip over entitlement, case type. I'm going to say I have an issue or a problem. So we've got some segmentation. I'll say it's product related, and then Great to be streaming for Confab. Oh, also, I have an issue with my printer.
Fix it.
And then we can't even choose. We can go and choose files. So if I go in to my file explorer here, we can go to. Let's go to downloads and find some text file or some error details. Imagine that. And I'll submit that. So once that's submitted, we should get a screen refresh, and then what it's doing is ingesting the data, and then you can set boundaries and heuristics in terms of once records are created, it has now inserted that record into the database. You can right now it's redirecting to the main list again, but you can redirect to a read-only form. You can redirect to a different page. You have a number of options in terms of the actions that you take based on input. So you can see that my new confab case was slotted in at the top here once I sorted by created on. And if I view those case or the case records here, number of attributes that are read only, we already took a look at this, but it's nice that you get the pop-up modal right in front, so you don't have to navigate away and navigate back. But further down, we also have a native timeline. So if I wanted to add a portal comment, 3D printer has an issue. You can also choose files here, submit that. I can tailor and alter a few other assets on this form as well if I wanted to. Say I mischaracterized something, or there was a fat finger or something here and there. But what's nice is that we've got our original entry here. We've got another comment, so we can have a running breakdown or running comment thread for that real-time collaboration and some context as to what's going on. I myself have the ability to close this case or cancel it outright, so you can control this based on statuses as well. But just to show you, if I go back to D365 here, and let's go to customer service. If I go to cases, I don't know how this is sorted, but at the very top, created on, well, we've got the confab case right there. So this is that record that was just submitted. So it's going to get serialized, and we're going to have the same things happen that we would if we generated this case internally. We're starting in the identify stage. This is, for the most part, all out of the box. But what's cool is, hey, recent cases from that customer. So if you've got these things set up in the system, you have this 360-degree view of everything going on. So now I've shifted from portal user to internal customer service manager, or tier 1, tier 2 support rep. I know who my customer is if I go down here. I know the context, and I understand the channel. So it came from the web, so it did come from the portal that was automatically ascribed. We've got that description. And up top, this is that comment rundown. So 3D printer has an issue. I can actually respond if I go and add a new portal comment. I can respond to this and go, great, looking into it ASAP.
Don't forget your subject. Haha. Exactly.
So can save and close it. And I think I'll probably, you may want to mark that, save it, and mark it as complete. I think complete portal comments. Again, this is all off the shelf stuff. You can customize this, but we can kind of stage these comments if we want to send them out at a particular time. So if I go ahead and complete the portal comment, we'll close that out, and that will be realized on the portal. I should say there is, I think, a 12-minute gap between data refreshes, or there can be. So it usually happens either in real time or very close to real time, but sometimes resources are needed, and it can take up to, I think that number is lower than 12 now, but it can take a few minutes to be realized on the front end. So if we go back to our case here and refresh this, let's see if it's on there. Yep, we've got our comment. So like I said, it usually happens in real time or right away for some of this related data and some of the data corralling, but this happened in real time right in that comment thread. So I'll just cancel the case. Hey, I fixed it myself. So that's like the heart and soul of the portal. Is how easy is that to go in, and yes, I did create the entity list. It's very easy to do that too. Yes, I did have an entity form ready to go, but the ability to spin something up on the front end, take that as a tier 1, tier 2 agent, work with that, communicate, add attachments, add media, collaborate with that portal user right there and then, this is in terms of some styling and core functionality and security, this is maybe days of effort, again, not with to the teeth customization, but this is days of effort versus months. And that's the story that I like. That gets me. I really appreciate the fact that you can stand this up so quickly. Now, for Power Virtual Agents, I actually did. This is a different portal. This is in the other environment, but this is an iframe. So if we go in our maker portal, I know that I'm bleeding over here, but we did have a late start. If I go to what was it, Confab test, I'm gonna go into my editor. To get a bot live, you do have to work with either using a content snippet to load it. So in that portal configuration I talked about, using with a little liquid tag. So you're actually working with the source code a little bit. But I used an iframe, and that's with some of the documentation from Microsoft. I think that's probably the preferred method. So this right here, to replicate what I did, all I did was I'm going to click on here and create a new iframe element or component. So right now it loads up Bing automatically, but what you can do, size that up. I have my Power Virtual Agents admin portal over here, so I'm going to snap over to that. Once you have your bot ready to go, you'll have to go and publish that. So make sure that everything is up to date and you have your bot published at least once so you can get it live. It's externally available. You can use it. Once that's published, I'm going to go down to manage. Now, this is a Power Virtual Agent specific play, but go to channels. And this is going to give you the breakdown of all of the different channels where you can embed or use Power Virtual Agents as your bot of choice. So number of different options. Skype is one of them. There's Slack, there's Teams, which is cool. Have worked with that before. There is a demo website, but I'm going to go to custom website. And when you crack that open, it's really just going to give you an email out or just copy link option. So this is where we have that iframe. And what I did, if we go back app or the portal configuration, it needs a link. In fact, if I go into PVA and copy this whole dang thing, great, it's been copied to my clipboard. If I try to throw that into the iframe link in the portal configuration, it'll bark at me a little bit and say, hey, enter a valid link. So
docs type. Yep.
What you do there is in PVA, just highlight the URL, so HTTPS all the way through your bot GUID. So it's the domain /web chat /bots, and then you'll have a GUID or that identifier. So only copy that portion, and then you go over to where was it here? We go over to our portal editor and plug that in, and there we go. So that it's as we're not doing PVA today, and we're really just hitting on the high marks for portal capabilities today as well. But it's that easy for point and click. Power BI was much more involved, getting into AD security groups and making the app reg and going into the developer tools and things like that. But Power Virtual Agents, if you want to just display that in a form, you can do so with a few clicks if you've got it ready to go on either side. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
The end result is that we have this bot. How late are you? This is just the stock bot that's served up. I actually have a much more robust support bot that draws from blogs and case status and a number of different things elsewhere. But I just plugged in because I was getting super frustrated last night, and I was like, yeah, you know what? There we go. But
I'm done. Yeah.
It's easy. It's easy enough to do. So, God, there's so much to talk about. I'm trying to keep my thoughts in order and make this a cogent story for everybody. But the capabilities that you have, the tools that you have, especially with Power Apps portals, not D365 specific, but going with that naked portal entry point, the Power Platform tools between BI, obviously Power Automate, any triggers we can use within PVA, or PVA itself being leaned on in terms of that frontline customer support and the tools that you have there. It's awesome. Like, it's really fun to start playing with. It's really fun to get out the door. And again, the time it takes to get something that is very functional, looks nice, and has added security and a lot of security options is just it's huge for customers.
Yeah, I agree. Adam, that's been awesome. Thank you for showing this. I mean, like you said, more about just exposing people to understand that there is, you don't have to force a Power App to do your portal now. You can use portals to do it and use Power Apps to connect to it. And it's able to access all your data, and you can build custom portals then. And I'm assuming longer term here, I mean, there's going to be people that are going to create templates for these, just like with Power Apps that can be reused, that can be deployed, so that way you don't have to have like 16 different portals that you're customizing to really make this effective. You have out of the box portals that'll probably gain traction. So this was just released too. I mean, if I remember, Adam, technically on the Power Platform with this was like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Is that correct? Was it fall?
I remember. I think it was at Summit last year. I was speaking with Dilip Singh, who is one of the portal Power Apps portal, D365 portals, the Microsoft portal leads at Microsoft, and he was kind of talking about roadmap items. So it's been in talks for quite some time, but the GA for Power Apps portals was within the last. I don't even understand.
Had to be a couple months.
I don't know what time is anymore because I've been living at home, and
we've all exactly.
It's like March 32nd or 45th. Yeah, so it last 6 months, 9 months, somewhere in there. I mean, this is newer stuff. So this portal configuration that you see right here, this is all of these, like the components and some of the components and like theming and the templates and everything. Those were grayed out and locked down in the newer Maker portal in the portal configuration tool for some time. So there will be many more new features that come out. There will be many more already there features. When we're taking a look at the portal configuration within D365 and all of the different pieces that go into it, I expect a lot of that will be baked in more and more to this front-end editor. So we're going to see a lot of this stuff that starts getting much more detailed and technical. They're really going to ride that low-code, no-code mentality, and I expect a lot of that to be point and click in time.
Cool. That makes sense. All right, guys. I know we've gone a little bit over. I know we had some technical difficulties at the beginning of the stream. It looks like in terms of drop frames and all that kind of stuff, the internet is just crazy right now. Obviously, 2 weeks from now, we've got the IoT content that we're going to go through. We're going to have devices, hopefully, that we can show on stream that will be able to send data back to create work orders for maintenance type events. So we're going to be tackling that. And like we said, our Stoneridge Connect is next week. If you want to register and participate with it, please visit our website. We will have, like I said, a bunch of different sessions that we'll be tackling, and they're all relevant to dynamics, to business processes, to change management. There's a whole bunch of different tracks that we had. Usually this is an in-person event, but obviously with the world and the way it is going on right now, we're going to focus on a virtual event. And from there, hopefully you guys can learn a little bit more about the content that we passionately love. So thank you again, Adam, for the presentation. Thank you, chat, for daring with us as we went through this today. And hopefully next week we won't have as many internet problems as things slowly stabilize here in the world. So talk to you guys later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.